Londoners are no stranger to a thick fog, Hugo, but this is no regular weather phenomenon. Shall I recap? First, the fog lifted and we could see the moon. Its natural procession halted, with that unnatural violet hue. Then, random violence erupted in the streets and crazed animals. Even for the East End, that's unexpected. But where did they come from? And now reports of radical zealots causing mayhem. Well, it's no mystery why Her Majesty chose to enlist my aid. I am, after all, the brightest technological mind of our era. Yes, thank you, Hugo. I believe we'll find the answers in the skies above London. Take a look at the etherioscope. These radiation readings, well, I don't know what to make of them. If the equipment is functioning properly, it shouldn't be possible. Unless... The engines must have been damaged in the storm. Fortunately, my armor kept me safe, but we'll need to make some repairs.
Burn the heretics.
Hugo, I believe these locals intend to do us harm. Kindly relay a missive to the Syndicate dispatch. We may need some assistance.
Miss Molly, it looks like you have correspondence. Must be urgent to reach you here.
I won't be needing that room tonight, Eustace. I'm off to help an old friend.
Emerging from the wood's darkest recesses, you spy a caravan in a clearing. Close by are a tent and a table, but the site is deserted. A warm campfire suggests that someone was recently here, though you have no desire to wait for them in a forest full of predators. The inside is a chaotic mess, books and knickknacks scattered everywhere. You pocket a lone item from the shelf to your right and move on.
Hercules.
You see a pillar of smoke and follow it to a small farm where the starling rests in a field. Despite signs of a struggle, it looks like lights are on inside. You climb the gangplank and find Griswold inside, ratcheting a leaking pipe. He looks relieved to see you and invites you to join him at a table covered in maps and scientific charts.
She'd make a fine barn, Griswold.
The Starling's engines took a beating in the storm, but she'll fly again. I just need the right parts.
The two of you seem to have your hands full. What exactly does Her Majesty need from me?
Our engines need replacement parts. Not something you can pick up in the Haypenny shop, but I'm sure you'll manage. Hugo and I need to stay here and finish repairs.
Is that all?
I'm certain the lunatics who accosted us outside were motivated by some external force. If you're able, find out what it is and put a stop to it.
The wealthy landowners of Thornwood are hosting an exclusive moon party. Rumours of unnatural rites and inhuman guests abound. Infiltrate and uncover their motives. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. Though she is old, her eyes are quick and bright. Anselina waves you over to share the warmth. She will also share her guidance and wisdom for a price. The lichen is spreading wildly here. You observe it pulsing faintly, like ripples in a pond. The ripples have a rhythm, all leading northeast towards Hangman's Hill. In a field beside the old manor, you find a crudely carved statue, several meters tall. It appears to have been hewn from a single black stone and must be tremendously heavy. Some of its features are reminiscent of a fertility goddess, but the longer you try to focus on its form, the less recognizable it becomes. At the edge of the woods, you come upon a faded, ivy-choked manor. The eccentric scholar, Dr. Crowthorne, invites you inside. Within are shelf upon shelf of heavy black tomes, specimens in foggy glass jars, maps and other gewgaws. He offers sanctuary, though the house pulses with an undefinable energy. You see a pair of raggedy dressed men pushing a handcart, their cargo covered in tattered canvas. One of them is hunched over to keep the wheel aligned while the other pushes. Both are cursing in distress when they spot you. "Good evening, gentlemen. Are you in need of a hand?" One of them pauses in his toil to reply. "Unless you got a spare axle about you, you're no use to us. But here, my brother Jacob, may God keep him, left me this and I have no use for it." The crowd cheers or screams, impossible to discern which. When for a moment the moon's glow fades, they exchange bewildered glances before the sky flushes scarlet again. You slip away before you can be spotted. You try to make sense of the sky's shifting colours and the mad folk's delirious chorus. Ultimately, you're left with more questions than answers about what just transpired. The motives for the moon party were merely desperate half-thoughts conjured by the mind-sickening moon. You avoided slipping into madness, along with the party guests. Something evil haunts the trees surrounding Hangman's Hill. The woods are strange here, the shadows somehow darker, and there have been rumours of a weird creature lurking just out of sight. Several people have gone missing. It's time to investigate. The branches overhead cast long and warped shadows in the pale moonlight. A long dead tree, blackened by fire, seems oddly out of place. Though the branch is plainly bare, it casts a shadow of a hanging noose. The rope seems to sway, though there is no wind. You pass through a hamlet, barely a few houses at the roadside, and overhear a conversation within. "We need to stay inside, Mar. Our neighbours are losing their damned minds." The man sounds nervous as he consoles his mother. "The moon will pass soon, and when it does, all will be right, I promise." A chill wind passes you by as you stop to eavesdrop. The man, now concerned, says, "Mar, how long have you had this rash?" You continue on. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire. deep hush pervades the tumble-down roadside inn, where the patrons stare silently into their cups as the fire struggles against the damp. The innkeeper, Eustace Bell, stands behind the bar, a loaded musket hanging on the wall behind him. Both your limbs and eyelids grow heavy as you force your way through the woods. You long for a moment's rest. Temptation strikes you as you come across a bit of clear ground where the lichen is at least an arm's length away. You give your head a shake and pick up the pace. The farther you go, the more the lichen retreats, but you hurt yourself struggling through a dense patch of brambles. You emerge from the woods with most of your sanity intact, but physically wounded. At the edge of the woods, you come upon a faded, ivy-choked manor. The eccentric scholar, Dr. Crowthorne, invites you inside. The overgrown remains of a logging camp sit abandoned in a broad clearing. You triumphed over the highwayman, at least for now. The shadows are a bit dimmer and the air sweeter. The roads once more safe for travel. A ghostly figure is stalking the Epping forest paths. The locals are terrified, evoking ancient tales of Herne the Hunter and the Wild Hunt. Myth or menace, it's your duty to investigate. At the edge of the woods, you come upon a faded, ivy-choked manor. A deep hush pervades the tumble-down roads. The overgrown remains of a logging camp sit up. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire. This barn has faded to a uniform grey. The door. A gap in the undergrowth, a recently snapped twig, and flattened grass suggests an animal has passed this way. Perhaps a deer. Perhaps something else. You part a hanging mass of ivy to reveal a moonlit glade. There stands a majestic white stag, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Walking away, it pauses to glance back, as if inviting you to follow. It fades from sight like an apparition as it reaches the line of trees, but your attention is drawn to something in the grass. In a woodsy glade, you discover a young woman, her flesh crawling with lichen, her eyes dim and unfocused as she mutters to herself. Though you can barely make out the sounds, you somehow grasp their meaning.
Leave,
She whispers.
save yourself while you still can.
You sit the woman down and give her some water.
My flesh as this purple rash covered my body, and thoughts of rage and murder flooded my mind. I expect I shall either expire or become something new. If you somehow make it back, give the Bitterby family my regrets and tell them not to search for me. I am at peace.
You watch as she slowly draws her last breath. For a moment she is still, but then the corpse begins to convulse. She's one of them now. You come upon a pile of skulls, stacked up like a high stone cairn. The mist thins and a figure is revealed. He carries an axe made of bone, a stag's skull atop his shoulders in place of a man's head, its eyes aglow with hellfire. Hearn the hunter is here, and you are his prey. Instead of fleeing as the monster might expect, you stand your ground, the initial moment of terror wrestling with your newfound resolve. The phantom hunter disappears, leaving behind only rags and the decaying stag skull. You smash the skull and burn the rags, praying that his presence has been banished for good. A dark road cuts through the forest to Hangman's Hill, illuminated by the spectral glow of the whispering lichen. It seems to be spreading from here, and you strongly suspect you're close to discovering the source. A deep hush pervades the tumble-down roadside inn, where the patrons stare silently into In a secluded hollow, you discover a small brick cottage. The windows are all boarded over, but a trickle of smoke rises from the chimney. A soft voice calls from behind the door. "Don't look like you have the whisper yet. You shouldn't be here, it's not safe. Old Tom is watching." "What can you tell me about old Tom?" A weathered face appears at a crack in the window.
"Have you heard of Hangman's Hill? As the legend goes, Tom King was hanged for a highwayman ages back. He's been haunting the place ever since."
"Then what about the whisper, as you call it?"
"I reckon it's down to that damned moon somehow. Anyway, I wish you luck."
He steps back into the shadows. A Roma woman. It's cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. Though she is old, her eyes are quick and bright. You follow the lichen's sickly glow up a steep and rocky path. Arriving at the top of Hangman's Hill, you find a sprawling oak tree with a rusty gibbet cage dangling from the sturdiest branch. Within is the corpse of old Tom. He raises a bony finger towards you, and a malodorous wind rattles the tree. The corruption must be stopped at all costs. You stand your ground. Whatever happens, you mustn't let your guard down, lest you shed this mortal coil prematurely. The rusty cage crashes open, spilling the remains of old Tom onto the ground. The whispering lichen's glow dims to nothing, and with its unholy source defeated, it begins to wither. Ridding the forest of this deadly curse should bring relief to the villagers nearby, but the moon's glow is stronger than ever.
Have you had any success with the repairs?
I've just replaced the centrifugal, Governor, so the starlings should be skyworthy once more. And not a moment too soon. The moon's radiation is growing stronger.
The forests are quaint, but I would welcome a change of scenery.
That's an important reminder. Thank you. The starlings' facilities are still damaged. With more salvage, perhaps we can clear some space for needed allies along the way.
An infestation of rats has spiraled out of control. People fear they are rabid. Their eyes aglow and their chittering uncanny. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along. A wary chimney sweep questions you cautiously. I found something while I was cleaning the stacks and need your help. He walks away nervously and warns. There are strange deeds happening in these streets. No one is safe. An unassuming church stands near the high street. Inside, parishioners kneel in quiet prayer among the pews. You hear a choir singing in the distance, though no such group is present here. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. A rosy-cheeked fellow stumbles out and tips his hat to you before wandering off into the night. Through the swinging door, you see a wary barman serving the somber patrons. Beneath an undulating mass of rats, you see a half-eaten corpse in the street. The vermin scatter at your approach. The rats are quick and give you chase into an alley. All at once, they stop, turn tail, and flee past you. But from what? With a growl and a flash of teeth, a large, shadowed form rushes into the light. You find a pile of discarded machine parts, gears, and other metal junk. Some of these bits could perhaps be put to use on the Starling. You find a small storeroom at the edge of a worker's dormitory. The door is padlocked, but these weird priests seem to worship the rats like gods. However, you doubt they were the ones in control. Someone or something must be directing their actions. A church in Hampstead is beset by an horrific creature. The terrified parishioners have taken refuge within the sacristy and sealed the door, but the barricade won't last long. You find a pile of discarded machine parts, gears, and other metal junk. Some of these bits could perhaps be... At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. The sharp silhouette of Gothic towers against the night sky An unassuming church stands near the high street. Inside, parishioners kneel in quiet prayer among Here is the chapel in question, a dead body in a tradesman's apron fallen across the open threshold. As you approach, a deep, low groan sounds from within. A portly fellow with a sprung collar is watching from a safe distance, sweating profusely. You could peek through the doorway and take measure of your adversary, or else talk to this gentleman first. You suppress a shudder as your eyes fall upon the lumbering, unnatural thing in the chapel. It appears to have been assembled from a pile of mismatched body parts, much like how Mary Shelley described her famous monster. But this is no fiction. You observe its movements for a minute, then still yourself. The unholy creation sputters and collapses to the floor, the rattle of the stained glass echoing its final breath. The parishioners rush out from their confinement with much mopping of brows and expressions of relief. This threat, at least, has been quelled, but the creator of these monstrosities must still be dealt with. A witness reports a grisly murder on factory grounds and summon you to investigate. When you arrive, you are shown evidence of our gargantuan creature. The destruction left in the abomination's wake is scarcely to be believed, but at least the splintered doorframes and clawed-up streets will make the thing easy to track. You're less sanguine about actually killing it, but such is the job. Your quarry has sequestered itself from the slums, hoping for an abandoned house or to lose itself in the blind lanes. You're deciding your next move when a raucous laugh grabs your attention and you find yourself confronted by a pair of common thugs. Less commonly, they appear to be in league with some kind of mutant rats.
Oi, Governor, we come to lighten your burden. By that, we mean your coin.
Without comment, you stride directly towards them. A few more muttered threats follow, then a few steps back. Then the thieves are in full rout. It seems they don't have the balls for a fight after all. Their hideous pets, however, are not so easily intimidated. The sharp silhouette of Gothic towers against the night sky. The street lamps suddenly flicker out around you before blinking back on a moment later. These lamps must use new electric wires. Your eye follows the wires down the street and you notice more thick wiring haphazardly strung up. It leads to a large aether refinery at the top of a hill. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. A rosy-cheeked fellow stumbles out and tips his hat to you before wandering off into the night. Through the swinging door, you see a wary barman serving the somber patrons. You find a pile of discarded machine parts, gears, and other metal junk. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. You finally discovered your target in the next chamber ahead. Not that it's making any effort at concealment, grunting and clattering about the ruins of an arsenal warehouse. Did the Professor send his minions to collect supplies here? Every kind of gewgaw and tool is spilling from ruptured crates and fallen shelves. There might even be something you could use against the beast. You charge the abomination with an old-fashioned battle cry. The abomination's breath is reduced to a laborious wheeze as it extends its mutant claw in a final supplication. Then its arm falls to the ground with an unceremonious thud. The ordeal is over. You can't help but wonder what sort of creature it was before the Professor doomed it to this sorry existence. A spate of grave robberies in the north of London has led to wild speculations among the locals. As more exhumations are discovered, townsfolk are saying the dead walk the streets. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. Though she is old, her eyes are quick and bright. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. The sharp silhouette of Gothic towers against the night sky An unassuming church stands near the high street. Inside, parishioners kneel in quiet prayer among the pews. You hear a choir singing in the distance, though no such group is present here. These ruffians were extremely motivated in their grisly mission, but to what end? You discover a note tucked away in one of their pockets. 20 bodies are needed for this evening. Remember, the professor wants fresh meat, the recently deceased only. Fail to meet your quota, and you will join them. You receive a report from an engineer affiliated with the Syndicate. There's been a concerning spike in electrical output in North London. Follow the copper conduit I've indicated on the map and discover the cause of this dangerous anomaly. The chimney stacks above belch not just smoke, but a black, clinging ash. It drifts down in unnatural sheets, sticking to your coat and lashes. You brush the soot aside, but it smears like ink. Beneath it, faint runes flicker red before fading. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. A rosy-cheeked fellow stumbles out and tips his hat to you before wandering off into the night. Through the swinging door, you see a wary barman serving the somber patrons. An unassuming church stands near the high street. Inside, parishioners kneel in quiet prayer among the pews. You hear a choir singing in the distance, though no such group is present here. You find a discarded stack of papers, torn and blood spattered. They appear to be bulletins. Workers Unite is scrawled broadly. Join the Red Pack and fight for your liberty. A red A for anarchy is scribbled below. You follow the wires to the floor of a cavernous factory. Piles of bones cover up the copper conduits, leading to an office where business was orchestrated. Crows fly in through the shattered windows, tearing into hatcheted bodies at your feet, while the rats feast on entrails scattered across the work belts. A massive machine with sparking electric coils is bolted to the back wall, and a scribbled note sits atop the desk. The professor shall have all the components he needs, and all we had to do was funnel the poorhouse dead to this abandoned factory. Chop chop, job's a good 'un, but I don't understand how the generator works. Suddenly, the smell of burning oil fills the air, and you're surrounded by mechanized enemies. Having dispatched the generator's unholy guardians, you end the machine's life in a similar fashion by bashing it into pieces. When you're finished, the lights all flicker and dim to darkness. Whatever scheme the professor is concocting, it won't be powered from here. You receive an urgent letter from a gentleman named Alphonse. I humbly request the presence of Her Majesty's finest to investigate troublesome reports of a spreading disease. Please come to Kenwood Manor, observing the utmost discretion. It's sealed with a wax insignia resembling a coin. A group of workers have gathered to support the Red Pack. They're chanting, "Free the wage slaves," and hoisting painted signs. However, some are simply cursing in a disorganized manner. And as their voices rise, you see that their canines are longer than they should be, glistening in the moonlight. Something tells you this protest may indeed become violent. You curse at them for opposing the status quo. Supporting the anarchist Red Pack cannot be allowed. Suddenly, a group of workers surrounds you. Baring their sharp teeth, the sound of guttural growling overpowers that of the protest. Their clothing falls to rags as they abandon their human forms and make ready to tear you limb from limb. You are welcomed into an austere manor by a man named Alphonse.
Thank you for coming. I lead the Silver Coin, a werewolf preservation society. The Howling Twins are besmirching the name of decorous werewolves. We cannot coexist with the citizens of London when so many of our kind are attacking recklessly. You must stop the Howling Twins so that societies like mine can continue our work.
A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire aloft. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. A rosy-cheeked fellow stumbles out and tips his hat to you before wandering off into the night. Through the swinging door, you see a wary barman serving the somber patrons. An unassuming church stands near the high street. Inside, parishioners kneel in quiet prayer among the pews. You hear a choir singing in the distance, though no such group is present here. Reaching the Howling Twins, you're shocked to see that they don't attack you first. Instead, they contort their wolven maws to communicate.
Look at this grovelling, soot-happy dolly mop. The excesses of industry will never silence us. Without proud leaders like Slavenko, the populace will remain without the means to capital, wage slaves for the factories and labour camps the government calls offices.
You respond, arguing that capitalism is at least democratic, while anarchy and revolution are doomed to fail. The twins howl in disagreement as they abandon any pretext of civility. As the cursed twins slump to their knees in defeat, they release a final harrowing howl that tapers into stillness. Their bodies remain lupine, masking their human identities in death. They threaten the streets of London no more. Rumour has it that a certain Professor Vane has been less than ethical in his experiments lately. Experiments that have been let loose to torment the residents of Shoreditch. His lab can be found in a disused factory. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before us. The makeshift conduit snaking through the city led to this macabre scene. You were hoping to find Vane here, but the lab is abandoned. A body lies in state, surrounded by medical equipment and less identifiable machinery, his torso riddled with corroded wires. While the madman has found some success in creating new horrors, no amount of electricity will bring this boy back from the dead. The machines come to life and fill the room with strobing white light. Suddenly, sparks fly as the equipment is overloaded. The body spasms as it surges with electricity, and then bursts into flames. The fire spreads quickly, forcing you to retreat. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. The infamous professor looks more like a vagabond than a man of science. Too late, he crows, skipping from one unidentifiable apparatus to another.
You're too late to stop me now. It was the glow of the Chaos Moon. You see, it changes everything it touches. Once it fell upon my children, they all came to life.
If reason ever graced his rolling eyes, it's long gone now.
You say it's over? It has only begun.
He titters madly.
You may kill me, but my children will live on, and as the power of the Chaos Moon burgeons, so will they grow.
He throws a glass canister and it shatters against your raised arm. There's no reasoning with him. You must fight him to the death. Vane will no longer conduct his dark experiments. Yet, in the aftermath of the destructive battle, you see a hulking specimen break free of a glass capsule and leap from a small window into the night. The horror, it seems, shall continue. A package arrives with a message from Pavel Gerard, rat catcher and seller of fancy rats to the landed gentry. Some of my best friends have gone missing. I'm worried they've fallen in with a bad crowd, and I need your help. By friends, I mean rats, of course. Inside the package is a special kind of bait. The sharp silhouette of Gothic towers against the night sky. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. A street urchin flags you down and shares a message.
I know a copper what wants to speak to you. Life or death, I reckon. Find him at St. Catherine's, quick as you can.
A nervous constable waits near the water.
I heard about your connections with the Crown, and I don't know where else to turn. The police are all on the take, likely up to Scotland Yard. Paid informants for a man they call Cardinal Wynne. Days ago, before this moon business, we were all told to leave Westminster well enough alone. I believe something infernal is taking place there.
Those rats have the markings that Pavel mentioned. See if you can lure them closer. The rats scurry over and join your party. the docks, you find a rowboat stacked with barrels. Strange glowing oil spills into the water. Some dockhounds are playing a drinking game under the lamplight not far away. The barrels are marked with a crescent moon, an image you've seen before. The fluid inside can only be ether, just as valuable as it is volatile. You spot something useful nearby on the ground and deftly swipe it before you leave. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. You find a small storeroom at the edge of a worker's dormitory.
What ho?
Says Pavel when he sees you at the meeting place. The rats scurry around in circles at his feet, then crawl inside his waistcoat and take up their familiar positions of comfort.
My beloved friends have been returned. How can I reward you?
You ask Pavel if he has anything rare to offer you.
But of course.
Pavel says, handing you a bundle with a small item inside. It's always good to see Pavel. He seems to be an old friend of everyone in the East End. Glad to see his brood of rats in good health as well. Pavel must have many ways to keep them from mutating into the gutter beasts you've seen in the sewers. Bare-knuckle brawls are happening at the Crimson Herring Tavern. Under the Chaos Moon, the sporting gents have been rather loose with their coin. If the fights cannot be stopped, then at least one with a wagering mind could take advantage of the collective madness in the East End. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. As you walk near the Thames, you see some peculiar movement near the water. You walk to the end of a dock and peer into the black water. Without warning, you see a gigantic creature breach the surface. Its flesh is a collage of violets, sickly greens, and otherworldly hues covered in countless bulging eyes. It dips back into the shallow depths, leaving you questioning your sanity. In a a quiet courtyard, a marble angel stands eroded and smoke-stained. Its eyes appear as though weeping from the soot. The ground around it emits a dewy mist. You spot some coins by the statue's foot. As you pick them up, the soot sticks to your finger like indelible ink. You find a pile of discarded machine parts, gears, and other metal junk. The sharp silhouette of Gothic towers against the night sky leads you to an old boys' school. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. You enter the tavern and have a drink. A happy pause from the mayhem outside. Budgie Babcock stands behind the betting counter. He's a well-known oddsman who at least makes good on his bets. You survey the two gents who are warming up to brawl, wondering how much you should wager. You bet on the lanky boxer in the blue corner. hoping that his range and speed will get the best of his opponent. A nice diversion from the rest of your pursuits. It's fun to play the odds, and at least for once, you weren't the one doing the fighting. Something gathers in the deep and reeking tunnels between London sewers and the Thames. The rats have taken to mobbing workers and toshes alike, almost as if organising themselves to drive man from their domain. Find out what's behind this bizarre behaviour and put an end to it. The sharp silhouette of Gothic towers against the night sky leads you to an old boys' school. The air above the street ripples like heat haze, though the night is bitter cold. Shapes swim in the distance, impossibly vast. You draw closer to the shimmering veil and find a face staring back at you. At first it looks like a mirror, but its form is unclear. A peal of energy rips across the veil, and a creature both hideous and alien steps onto the street. As you reflect on the strange occurrences of the past few nights, you bump into a gentleman quite by accident, causing him to drop a strange purple mask. He retrieves it and hurriedly rushes off. You follow him covertly and observe as he enters a mason's lodge, unaware that he is being tailed. Through a second-story balcony, you gain access to the lodge. From a safe vantage, you quickly see these are no masons. Forming a circle, you see a dozen or more figures in purple cloaks and matching smiling masks. One of them speaks.
Brothers, the hour is at hand. The ritual is nearly complete. The Master is coming. All hail Erebus. All hail the Son of Chaos.
The group cheers in unison.
Now you all know what is necessary. Nothing gets into Westminster. See to it.
You leave quietly, but not before finding something of value on a bookshelf by the window. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. Descending a stair below the street, you're soon navigating a maze of reeking tunnels and culverts, always seeking the highest concentration of vermin. These rodents are bold indeed, but not so bold as to challenge a flaming torch. As you approach the entrance to some kind of hall, their squeaking is hushed. A quick glance around the corner reveals a writhing heap of rats, bundled into a tattered trenchcoat, holding court over a handful of cloaked figures and what seems like 1,000 rats. Stepping forward, you declare that you've news from the Queen herself She will not recognize the Rat King's claims on the surface, but will offer a stipend to his human servants who search for new employment. Then you cast the coins upon the grime-caked floor. The cultists scramble for the money, stomping on their erstwhile allies and descending into an all-out brawl with each other. The Rat King screams in frustration and locks you with a murderous gaze from 1,000 sets of eyes. With the Rat King defeated, his rodents and human followers begin to tear each other apart. You hasten away from the rending and shrieking of the doomed and hope there's enough water in the Thames to wash them all away. Known anarchist and werewolf leader Slavenko has been running amok and inciting his comrades along with him. The fellow was already dangerous, but now the Chaos Moon has seemingly driven him to insanity. He must be stopped. A Roma woman. At the end of a labyrinthine tap. The anarchist lycanthrope leaves a swathe of shattered windows, kicked-in doors and general mayhem in his wake, including a few hapless citizens not quick enough to flee from his path. Eventually, you track him to the docks. There, amidst the creaking of rope and clinking of chain, Slavenko and one of his furry comrades seem to be arguing, the latter having soured on their enterprise. Before you can do more than address him, Slavenko leaps up and pivots in the air to land before you with a snort of carrion stinking breath. Though high overhead, the moon's reflection glows out from his eyes. Whatever reason this beast possessed has long since fled. Slavenko is dead, and with him his dastardly plot against the Empire. His fellow werewolves and co-conspirators, however, still flock together in the shadows, their grudge against Queen and country only strengthened by this defeat.
Westminster has become a fortress, and the police have turned a blind eye to whatever mayhem is happening there.
After the horrors we've encountered, I have no doubt the streets will be swarming with far worse.
I concur. This bishop and his Eclipse cultists are well prepared. This will be a difficult fight.
We have no choice. We know that their ritual concludes tonight. Whatever that means, it has to be stopped.
Cultists and creatures from beyond the Veil roam the streets of Westminster, working for a greater power. Pacify these minions before dealing with whoever is helming the terrible ritual that threatens London as a whole. A Roma woman sits cross-legged before a small campfire along the roadside. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. A rosy-cheeked fellow stumbles out and tips his hat to you. sharp silhouette of Gothic towers against the night sky leads you to an old boys' school. A hooded figure with red eyes towers before you. In a crackling voice that grates on the ears, he says,
I am the Exarch, Lieutenant to the Cardinal. I see that your aim is to reach Cardinal Wynn. By that same request, you have asked me to take your life.
Looking the Exarch dead in the eyes, you summon all the courage you can muster and say to him, whatever insane plot you have devised, the Syndicate will stop you. The Exarch must have been held in high regard by the cultists, but his demise doesn't halt the ritual or its effects upon the city. You gaze past the spires of Westminster Abbey towards the ultimate source of chaos, determined to make your way there as soon as you are well prepared. An abominable creature known as the Mortouched is stalking Westminster. It cannot be left unchecked. Kill it before you carry on. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. The sharp silhouette of Gothic towers against the night sky leads you to an old boys' school. Whatever students attend this place, none are present now. You decide to take shelter in the library, where a peculiar old man is reading in the antiquities section. Here is the beast that was stalking the streets of Westminster, slaying anything foolish enough to cross its path. From the ruined features that pass for its face, you surmise that it was once human, most likely a cultist infected with corruption from beyond the veil. Taking cover behind a park bench, you flank the beast and use the moment to ready yourself before the battle ahead. The bizarre monster wheezes one final ragged breath and topples to the ground. As a pale mist rises from the corpse, you see that its body once held a human soul. After a brief moment of calm, a scream cuts through the quiet, reminding you that your work is not quite finished. The swirling trail of etheric energy hangs over Trafalgar Square. Follow it to its source and put an end to the ritual. At the end of a labyrinthine tangle of dark alleys, you find a public house. You step gingerly out upon the once grand square, its statues now scarred, its pavements littered with rubble. The glowering, mad-eyed Wynn awaits. Surrounded by his followers, it's clear that the ritual is nearly complete. I am Eclipse Cardinal Edwin Wynn. I will destroy anyone who stands in my way. To which he replies, human life is a bargain in exchange for the great power of Erebus, the son of Chaos. Prepare to die or yield to the all-knowing void. The swirling mouth of chaos hanging above roils and collapses in upon itself, sucking the Eclipse Cardinal into its vortex. When the haze finally dissipates, bright blue sky is revealed for the first time in what feels like weeks. The sun's rays fall gaily upon the square's ruined plinth, and you take a moment to revel in the warmth.